All right, I think we are live. Welcome everybody back to another edition of Chairgatin. I'm your host Rattlesnake, coming at you live once again from Destin, Florida. Actually, in
Yeah,
a different
you're in the
location.
hotel now, and I'm at home.
Yeah,
This is weird.
yeah, I'm the one that is in the hotel. Joined with my co-host Dakota. What up, Dakota?
What's up, everybody? Live from Atlanta, Georgia, and we got a big episode ahead of us because we have the man himself, Jordan Bianchi, joining the show, pulling strings. The man is here. What's up, Jordan?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. This is fun. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. All right, Rattlesnake, let's start the show.
Let's do it. What's up? It's Chairgatin coming at you live.
Hello, come right in.
Rock, flag, and eagle.
Yeah, I hope you like that, Jordan. That's our little spill there. We're just
Like
we're
I
just
need
a
a drink
couple.
though. I need like a cocktail or something.
Hey, by all means, we more the merrier. You do you, man.
I gotta work after this. I
Oh
shouldn't.
God, the work never stops over there.
Yeah, after this. Oh man.
Damn. But we're just a couple dads. We enjoy racing. We got a little show going on where we just like to break down every week and pretty much lay it on the table on how we feel about the race every weekend. But it's cool to have like guests like you on and just break down stuff.
I appreciate it. That was fun, and Bristol gave us plenty to talk about. That's for sure.
Oh, dude, this was Rattlesnake's first Bristol, by the way. This is
Wow.
we knocked the rust off and got him there finally, and we're gonna talk about all that too. It's just
Okay.
Bristol never disappoints, man. Like Bristol is always, you're never gonna leave there like upset. Just even if the race is bad or not quite what you thought it was gonna be, that place as a whole just has that special feeling when you walk in.
I agree. I remember the first time I walked in there, which actually just a few years ago, and it's really hard to comprehend what it's like. I mean, it feels like a small little like football stadium with that's just surrounded by these giant bleachers, and it's a big bowl. It's hard to fathom that it's 100 and I don't know how many seat there now, 120,000 or whatever it is. It's unbelievable. There's nothing like walking into Bristol.
Yeah, dude. Rattlesnake, how'd you feel about it?
Yeah, my first time walking in there, and I've been to a lot of college football games, a lot of SEC games. So as Jordan mentioned, that's immediately what stuck out to me. I was like, well, this is a college football stadium. Like that's what it looks like. That's what it feels like in the middle of the mountains with a little tiny racetrack in the middle. I'm like, how are people even fitting in the infield of this thing? Like the haulers look like they can barely back out of this. So it was just wild. It was just like nothing I've ever witnessed.
Oh man, and if people didn't know, I mean, you're huge to us, but like, yeah, so you're I guess a motorsport reporter for The Athletic. I mean, how would you describe your job title?
Motorsports reporter, primarily NASCAR. That's the vast majority of what I focus on, but I do do other forms of racing as well. But motorsports, basically, writing news, breaking news, and in-depth features is what I do for The Athletic.
And it almost seems, I guess you'd call it a hobby or second job doing the podcast with Jeff. It always seems like Jeff's all about it, and you're like, yeah, I guess I'll help you, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically it. Like I am just there to basically troll him for an hour,
Yeah,
hour and a half.
You're there for the banner.
Yeah, I'm just there to I really want to get him to snap, and I've gotten really, really close. And last Saturday night, well, technically Sunday morning was probably the closest. Like he was just done with me.
I listen to y'all every Monday morning, like at work, because y'all put the podcast up immediately after the race almost. And so every Monday morning, the teardown's what I'm listening to. And you just kept killing him. Be like, yeah, the dirt race, right? The dirt race. And he was like, I'm getting off. I'm leaving.
Yeah, he gets legit. Like sometimes upset. Like he rolls. I wish we need to do what you guys do and have like a live stream because his facial reactions are just really what makes it. And I wish people could see this because it's everything. And then when he gives me that kind of reaction, all it does is like add fuel to the fire. Like I'm getting there. I know what this is doing to him. I'm going to keep pushing because if he didn't give me that reaction, I'd stop in a heartbeat.
Oh man. But yeah, dude, I love how you keep it real on the show. He'll always be like, well, what do you think about the fan? What about this? And you'll be like, seriously? Like, no. It's not at all.
I try to, obviously you try to balance. I mean, you want to be honest. First and foremost, you have to be honest with what you're feeling and thinking. But there's also a line of like, hey, don't criticize just to criticize. You're going to criticize, be fair and be balanced, and try to like offer like, here's some constructive reasons of why this didn't work and what could be better. Just piling on or just ripping to rip, that has never been a philosophy that I've really agreed with.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can take them same aspects into life, like not even like you're doing your job, just keeping it real about stuff, or or even having conversations with regular people. But dude, man, we're so stoked to have you on here.
Dakota, which one of us keeps it real? I feel like you're hinting at something. He keeps like mentioning this.
Yeah,
Man, I really wish I could just tell
he's the
my
wild
co-host.
card, and I'm like the Bruce Fraba guy of us two.
All right, I see.
I'm the one
at.
backing him down. He's either asleep or he's balls to the wall.
Yeah, I'll take
extreme
that.
or the
That's
other.
a good way to
That's
put it.
pretty fair.
But man, we did the Bristol night race. We got down there early Friday. We went to see Michael watch it brewing. That was fun. And then I mean, it's all, I was like, whether we eat here or not, let's just go get a beer. First thing we did when we got into town, we got a couple beers there, then moseyed over the track, hung out a bit. And then we walked in the Xfinity race. And I always, whenever I bring new people to Bristol, I'm like, I want to get their first reaction. Like, I want to see their face when they walk up the bleachers. Because every time, like, since I've come there as a kid, TV does no justice of how small this place is. And we put some good content of that up there. But man, so why don't we have more night races? This is my thing. Is like Bristol under the lights is so iconic. But then I was thinking, and then looking at the schedule from last week, and I was like, why not do night races? I know TV ratings, people, blah blah blah, but it's like, dude, this is it. Like, this is what we want.
You're right in the sense, like Bristol night race is iconic and it's special, and so is Daytona, the regular season finale at Daytona, Saturday night race. That's great. But you hit on the reason why there aren't more night races and why NASCAR really in the last few years has shifted away. Like Richmond used to have 2 night races. Now it's got 0. It's about TV. Unfortunately, the reality is that Saturday night races don't draw well in terms of television viewers, especially in the fall when you're going against college football. You look at the ratings for Saturday night's race at Bristol, which was an entertaining race. And I think if you were a fan, or not even a fan, if you were just someone to tune in, you were probably going to be like, wow, this is good. It didn't draw that well. If that race would have been on a Sunday afternoon, the reality is it probably would have drawn better, even against the NFL. It's just the reality. Saturday night is a dead night for television, and television dollars in all sports, as you guys know, rule everything, and they dictate a lot of what happens in sports.
Well, thankfully, it didn't ruin attendance because wow, that place
was the biggest crowd I've seen in years. Probably like last 5 years at least. Like that crowd, even before the race, we were like, dude, the energy with the pre-race, like goosebumps, the C-130 flying over, man, that place just does it. That's all. You reminded me too of like, remember their COVID racing? They're like, we're gonna do Wednesday nights. Yep. I'm glad we got to like get our toes wet and realize that was a failure. Because I was kind of like, okay, Wednesday night, but I was also like, dude, I'm working late. Like, I don't even know if I can make it home in time for the race.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I really was glad that they experimented with that to see what it's like. I still think that's a winning concept to do, not on the regular, but like one race in the summer. Just one. Yeah. Make it special. Make it somewhere like that. The Wednesday after the Major League Baseball's All-Star game in mid-July is the deadest night in sports. There is nothing going on. Yeah. And that, to me, is like an optimal time to do it. I would love to go to some short track somewhere, like in North Wilkesboro or something like that, and race there, like a 200-lap race on a Wednesday night on primetime television. I think you would get viewers. And I think you just have to build it up and you really have to promote it. And that was the issue with the COVID races, is there just wasn't a lot of promotion and people didn't know, and everything was constantly shifting, it felt like. So I hope it's an idea that they revisit, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah. I feel like you're like you were saying, promotion wise, I feel like, I mean, we get commercials and like they bleed the commercials to death, but I feel like halftime, like I have several buddies that are like half-assing the NASCAR. Like they'll watch Bristol and Dega and stuff. But like they're like, I'll be like, hey, y'all gonna watch the race? They're like, oh, I'm busy. But like I told him, hey, Bristol night race, cut off playoffs. This is gonna be one y'all are gonna want to watch. Like, you're gonna watch it. And then they were like, dude, this place looks awesome. This is sick. They're like, they had me telling them was the only way they knew about the race being on. And it's like, I always wonder too, is like, just maybe you're half ignorant fan out there that's just like, oh, is there a race? I didn't know. When was it? And it's like, especially, I think everybody thinks NASCAR's on Sunday. So maybe even changing days around is like, oh, but I think just promoting things is like something NASCAR or even NBC or Fox could do better.
I don't think there's such a thing as too much promotion, and it would be nice to see more and more, especially
you can never have too much.
Never, and especially during programming that isn't related to NASCAR. And I think sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't, and it's hard. It's unfortunate because Bristol should be one of those races, like you said, it's circle on the calendar, like, oh my goodness, this is Bristol night cutoff playoff race. This is gonna be great. Like, we have to watch, and people showed up at the track, which was incredible. I mean, a great crowd there, the best in years. And I can't tell you why, there weren't more people watching. I just know that Saturday nights, it's just really tough. And I don't know what the solution is, because you don't want to lose that environment on a Saturday night and move that to Sunday afternoon, because I don't think you'd have the same electricity. But you also want better ratings. So I don't know what you do.
It's almost like that, everybody's kind of bitching, complaining about the Easter Sunday dirt race that we all love so much. We're real big Bristol dirt race guys here too. But I was like, I've already seen so many people complaining about next year that being on a Sunday night, Easter Sunday, and like what they could easily do it on Saturday, I would think. But then it's also the rating they're looking for. I remember when the Coliseum thing, they seemed like they advertised the shit out of that. Like, I saw it on everywhere, any channel I was watching. And I had people at work that don't even watch NASCAR. They're like, are they really racing in a football stadium? Like, people were asking me. They know I'm the NASCAR guy. They were asking me, and I'm like, yeah, you should check it out. And like, people were curious, like, that didn't watch NASCAR. And it's like, we should just do that for all the races.
Yeah, and that was the beauty of the Coliseum. And Fox, I will say, did a really, really good job of promoting that. I mean, you saw it, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you saw it in all their big programming, and it was great. And they pushed it really hard. And that was the thing of, like, they're really going to race a race inside the Coliseum. Like, what? They're building a track. And it was a novelty. And that was cool. And it was like, are they really going to pull this off? And they did. And I think that was one of the reasons why it was so successful. And they didn't race on a Saturday night, too. They raced on a Sunday night on the East Coast. And that helped a lot. And I think it's great. And it's kind of the same logic behind, like, going to Chicago. Whether you agree with it or not, it's like this novelty of, like, oh my goodness, they're going to build a street course in downtown Chicago and they're going to race there. Okay, yeah, I'm going to watch that. And the same with the Bristol Dirt, of why they put it on Easter. Like, that's a good marquee time slot. And you've got this novelty of people are like, wait a second, they're racing dirt at Bristol? Like, if you don't know NASCAR, you're like, wait a second, isn't Bristol like not a dirt track? So, I mean, it's these kind of experimentations that so far have resonated, and they've hit on their 3 for 3 so far.
Yeah. And I mean, we are on record as doubters for the Coliseum. Like, we were, like, there's no way this works. It's a crazy idea. And it worked. And we've admitted that we were wrong, that clearly that worked. We have the same mindset going into Chicago, so they're gonna have to prove us wrong.
And that's understandable. Like, I understand why people are doubting the Coliseum. Like, it's okay. I mean, you look at that and you're like, this isn't gonna work. Like, the track isn't gonna be successful. It's gonna come apart. Whatever.
Right.
And same thing with Bristol Dirt. And the first Bristol Dirt race did have issues. Let's not ignore that. And it's okay to have reservations about Chicago. They've never raced on a street course before NASCAR. Is there going to be enough passing? Can you race side by side? I mean, to me, my concern is I feel like if one car crashes, a bunch of cars are going to pile in, and you're going to see a lot of cautions and things like that.
2.0.
Yeah, I mean, it is all legit. It's a concern. But I will say this: I always say you can't hit a home run if you're afraid of striking out. And NASCAR is going to fail at some points, but I would much rather have this than what it used to be. When we go back 10 years ago and look at the summer schedule. And what it was like then, and just how monotonous and frankly boring it was.
Yeah, at least they're trying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. I love, like, okay, I appreciate them trying so much. I appreciate, like, we're gonna change it up, but I'm also like, I didn't say road course.
Jordan, do you think, as this question's asked, do you think that the Clash will move around?
Yes.
Yes. Because The only thing I've heard about this is they've chose the Coliseum because it was big enough to fit a racetrack, and a lot of other stadiums aren't necessarily.
100%. And you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a universal thing you can take to every football stadium.
Right.
It has to be a very specific football stadium with enough openness on the field to allow a construction of a racetrack. And to answer your first part of the question, yes. I mean, the idea behind this is to be able to go into markets where you don't have racetracks. You know, if you want to race in, say, New York City, you got no track there. But hey, maybe we can build a racetrack inside a Yankee Stadium or one of these other stadiums that are within the market and make it work. And my understanding is, the conversations I've had, is that this is an idea that if this continues to be a success in year 2, it would be very unwise not to try to move this around and make this special, whether that's New York, Mexico somewhere, Canada somewhere, overseas. I mean, whatever it is, if you have an idea that you can build this stadium or this racetrack inside a stadium that works, like, hell yeah, let's bring it somewhere.
It's clearly a hype success. Like, you're almost, if you keep this, you can, it's like a gray area. You keep this going, but you can go too long. Yeah. And like, hey, like, look how good this is doing. And other cities see this, or maybe like, hey, y'all could bring this here. We could bring this kind of revenue.
My concern is if they do try to go somewhere overseas or somewhere international, how much strain that might put on the teams to have to travel so far.
It's a fair question. And, with these cars, I mean, it's a fair question. Like, how much strain do you put on the teams? You look at Formula One and they're globetrotting, everywhere. Yeah. So, like, there is a model you can kind of follow. Maybe you pad a week in the front or the back end and give these teams a week off. And so that kind of thing. Yeah. I just think there's a way to do it. And, you've got to worry about the time change, make sure that, you're racing at an optimal time in Europe that matches up to over here. But these, to me, aren't obstacles that can't be overcome. And the one thing I will respect about NASCAR is they've really changed the mindset of finding reasons of why we shouldn't do something and sticking and saying, hey, we can't do that because of this, X, Y, Z. And now it's, this could be a challenge, but we're going to find a reason to do this, A, B, C, D, of why we can make this work.
Dude, yes, I'm spot on. It's like there's so much to go into that, but like you were saying earlier, like, you don't know if you don't try. I mean, even if it doesn't work, like, okay, well, we tried that. I mean, people still talk about the Dale Earnhardt Jr. thing in Japan.
Like,
yes. We still talk about that today. It's like, even if it's just some exhibition wild-off race, I'm not against it. Like, let's try something.
Well, I got to ask then, Jordan, just in a blanket question, how do you feel about the new schedule?
For 2023?
Yeah.
I think it's great. I love the variation. I love there's road courses. I love there's a dirt track. I love that there are less intermediate tracks, though this next-gen car does race better on those tracks, which is much better.
That's the problem.
Yeah, but I love the fact of trying a street course. I don't know if it's going to work or not, like we talked about. I don't know if this layout is the right configuration. But again, try it. If it fails, great, we'll move on. And I love the fact that you're bringing back North Wilkesboro, which is like a really cool thing. And this all-star race.
Gravy on the steak.
What was that?
I said it's like putting gravy on the steak.
Yeah, it's great. Like, that is going to be. I'm very curious to see what the secondary ticket market is for that race, because you're only going to have. I don't know what they're going to do for the seating and everything. I think it's going to be around 20,000. It could be more, but I think it's going to be around there.
Well, I was going to say they did the pre-sale and the internet couldn't even handle it.
We couldn't get our donation in.
It's clearly going to be a knockout of the park. But I do like how they're trying all this changing, adding all this stuff, but they're also like, hey, we still remember you old fans. We still got you, boy. North Wilkesboro, but then I'm also like, look at the attention and popularity that's getting. I'm super stoked about North Wilkesboro. I'm like on the fence with this street course idea. Sure. It's like, okay, the new fan might be like,
he's trying to be PC now that you're here.
No, I mean, I understand.
He's had stronger words
when
the thing about
Bianchi isn't here. The thing about this guy, and I agree, and like, I'm okay with having reservations about Chicago. Like I said, I get it. It's okay. It makes sense. And I think the good thing about this schedule is that it affords you the opportunity to kind of cater to your old school fan, right? You're
Right.
going back to
Yep.
North Wilkesboro. You're probably going to have a race in Nashville at the fairgrounds in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at adding more short track. I mean, they're turning Fontana in California into a short track. So you've got these elements that are really catered to an old school fan, and that's great because you need to do that. You cannot ignore your fan base and what is your bread and butter. But you can also experiment a little bit because you've got 36 races and you can kind of get weird and say, yeah, you know what? We're going to have a dirt race at Bristol. Yeah, we're going to have a street course in Chicago. And like, you can have a little bit of both. You don't want to go too far on the extreme, but like having one here and one there, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And I go back to what I said, even if it fails, it doesn't feel like it's going to be permanent. Like this isn't like hey, we're going to race at Chicago street course forever. Like, no, this is a 3-year thing, and it's just successful, great. If not, we'll move on.
I do appreciate that. Yeah, like we get the Chicago street course, which a lot of like fans like us are like, ugh, rolling our eyes. But then they're like, but also you get North Wilkesboro. I'm like, oh my god, we've been asking for that forever.
Well, and also like you're saying, it's like Road America. You know, here for a limited time. Come while you can.
Sure.
You know, it's not going to be on the schedule. You're not. Yeah, I'm gonna go to Atlanta next year and the next year forever. But it's like, you know. Hey, I need to go to this race while I can, while it's in my area or while it's close enough for me to go or something. And then like, hey, well, in, you know, a couple years, hey, it's coming back, you know, you can bring it back to the schedule, keep kind of messing everything around. It is neat. It's neat. It's all a lot to talk about. One thing that does bother me is the schedule's coming out. The schedule's coming out. The schedule's coming out. And then it comes out and we're like, we already knew all
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. I mean, like this year is kind of we knew. Like, I mean, I would say the last couple of years when NASCAR really was making these sweeping changes, like there was some unknowns of like how is the playoff schedule going to lay out? What track is going to have a date? What track is not? You didn't really know. This year, we already knew Chicago. The Athletic first reported. You already knew North Wilkesboro. And so, like, besides that, though, you knew everything. Like, that was kind of how it was going to lay out. Right. And then no playoff tracks were going to change. And you look at that. So, yeah, it always cracks me up. But I think it's like a football fan, right? Like, you know, like the NFL, you know who your teams are going to play, you know, well in advance because the formula is pretty well known and it's pretty easy to figure out. But you don't know the dates. And so even as a football fan, you're like, oh, man, we actually have dates now, like to put next to it. It's like you can kind of get excited because you actually know, like, I can start planning. And I think that is probably part of it is like, okay, you know that this race is going to happen here and you can get excited. But, you know, if people like it, that's what we're here for.
That's absolutely right.
We got a question. What road course would you take away and replace with a different road course, if any?
Ooh, good question. That's a really good question. I mean, I would like to go back up to Montreal. The Xfinity Series raced there for a long time, or not a long time, but a few years. That was probably one of the best road courses / street courses you're going to ever find. It's picturesque. The racing was phenomenal. It's a great market. I think going there is a huge thing. And if you're asking which track road course I take off, I don't know. I'm going to say Coda. And my reason for Coda is this, though. It's just too darn big. Like the cars get really spread out and it just kind of, to me, the racing's been fine, but it hasn't been amazing. Even like Road America, the racing at Road America last 2 years has been fine. I mean, this year's race with Tyler Reddick and Chase Elliott was compelling, but it's not the kind of the slam bam action you want to see on a road course. Yeah. Honestly, if I'm going to do anything with the schedule, I'm taking a date away from Kansas and probably a date away from Richmond. And I'm going to add a short track or two there and go that direction because to me, having tracks with 2 dates doesn't make a lot of sense. Like Martinsville, Talladega, Daytona, Bristol, you know, there are tracks at legacy tracks. You just say, hey, they deserve 2 dates.
Those are going to stay 2 days.
Exactly. But Richmond and Kansas, they deserve 1. I mean, that's it. And let's go somewhere else and let's get weird and let's try going to these short tracks. Like Nashville comes on in a couple of years. They take off Richmond and give me Nashville, and I'm fine with that. And let's try doing something. There's other short tracks throughout the country that are kind of in the model of North Wilkesboro of like, hey, if we go there and spend a little bit of money, we can kind of spruce this up and maybe put on a good show.
See, my thought with Kansas with the second date is if you take away a second Kansas date, I think you need to give the Midwest another race.
Sure.
They don't have a lot of races
right
in the
there,
Midwest,
baby.
and yeah. So if you like live around Kansas, it's like, man, you take away one of their dates, and that's
Sure.
like that's it for them.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm from
in a perfect
Texas, so when they were
Yeah.
talking about taking away Texas dates, I was like, guys, please, I know it's a bad track, but we have nothing else.
It's all
South
I have.
Dakota.
But that's the problem is like Texas is not been a good race. So how do you justify having 2 races there when it's arguably the worst track in NASCAR? I get the market size and everything else, and you want to cater to your fans, but you also have to have a product that resonates on television, and it doesn't. That's just it's unfortunate, but the reality is like people look at Texas and they're like, oh.
What do you think happens to Texas?
I think there's going to be a reconfiguration at Texas.
You heard it here first, folks.
Has to be.
I don't know if you heard it here first. It's been bandied about quite a bit.
Yeah.
But
I think something happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of speculation that it's going to kind of go towards a super speedway-esque, like Atlanta did.
And I'm nervous with that. I'm nervous with like, hey, hey, we built all these intermediate tracks in the 90s, and look at this. Now we're taking them away. And like, hey, now we're going to make all these tracks like super speedway. I am okay with the new Atlanta. I like it's like a Bristol Dega. Like if they had a baby, it's a little super speedway. And it's cool. It's cool and fun. It's different. I loved old Atlanta too now, but we got plenty of those. And
I think you make a really good point in that this kind of reminds me of the intermediate track boom you had in the 90s and the early 2000s, where like everything new track was this. And it's like, okay, it's fine for now, but is it fine for long term? Like,
yeah,
it is really easy to spend other people's money, and I'm really good at this. I, for the life of me, do not have a good reason why you couldn't turn Texas Motor Speedway into like a 3/4 mile track, like a Richmond or an Iowa Speedway, and you could still build that grandstands up around it. Or if you really want to get crazy and you want to start replicating tracks, why do we not have another Bristol? Like, you don't think Bristol and Dallas, that market would do well?
Dude.
Come on, like
make an asphalt Bristol.
Yes. Yeah. See, now we're thinking. Now, yes, there we go.
All right, I have an idea. Roger Penske buys Texas,
I have an idea.
and he takes that short track Auto Club idea and just does it to Texas, and we keep Auto Club.
And keep Auto Club. Stop messing with Auto Club, man.
Like,
we finally have such a good race there. Like,
I don't know why we're doing that.
It's unfortunate the news is coming out now that they're like going forward with changing Auto Club right after we have like one of the best races there.
It's like taking one of your best old dogs out and like, I'm sorry, it's not you, it's me. And
it's like Dakota lives in the country, by the way.
Yeah, I just mean like,
I'm very sensitive when it comes to dogs.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
me too. I'm a huge dog person.
Oh, well, you're not. Well, you on the show, you're always like, yeah, screw kids. I don't want kids.
No, yeah, kids and marriage are like.
Don't you say anything about dogs.
Dogs, though. I'm like, if you go to my Twitter page and like you go to likes, it is all dog videos. Kid you not.
Oh man.
We got just a couple questions real quick, and these two kind of relate. Sure. But Nick was asking, what got you into racing, like specifically NASCAR for work?
Kind of a roundy journey. Like, I became a motorsports fan, a racing fan as a kid. A friend of mine in 6th grade was going to a race at the local fairgrounds, and I was like, "Oh, I want to go. That sounds cool." So I begged my parents to take me. I got hooked. I fell in love with motorsports then. For a career, I didn't really know it was obtainable. I actually went into journalism, wanting to do sports talk radio, and I sucked. And then along the way, I kind of made a career detour and started writing, and I found out that I knew enough about NASCAR and racing to write about it, and that's kind of how I got in this path. So that's the short answer.
And this kind of goes with it. Was how did you become someone that people could trust as a source to spread true news and not just glimmers of something that might be true?
Really, really good question. And I guess the thing is you develop relations with people and contacts, and people believe trust what you're doing and know that when you don't be wrong. You don't report something that is not wrong, that you haven't vetted thoroughly. And everything that I report is vetted thoroughly with multiple sources and always dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and multiple times. You can never do it enough. And so, knock on wood, have never been wrong about anything. And I think that reputation, you just kind of build on that. And as long as you're honest with people and you don't try to mislead them, I think that helps you kind of develop credibility in how reporting.
How do you find like a balance between interjecting kind of your own opinion or personality into something without being too overly opinionied and just?
It's a good question. Yeah, when it comes to straight news, like it's just straight news. Like here's the facts, the who's, the what's, the whys, the whens, that kind of thing. Boom, 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 boom. and you leave it as is, and you let the news speak for itself, and then you try, and then you do separate pieces of like, here's a more analysis, nuanced, opinion-based thing, and you trust that the reader is going to understand, like, hey, this is news over here is an opinion thing. Most readers, I would say the vast majority of readers understand that. Occasionally you'll get like somebody reads a news story and they're like, oh, you're putting your opinion in there. And it's like, well, no. And sometimes somebody reads an opinion piece and they're like, oh, I thought this was news. And there's some confusion. But I think for the most part, I think especially our outlet here at The Athletic, we're very clear on what is news and what is more of an opinion piece.
Yeah. I mean, specifically like a week ago when it was like Jordan Bianchi, Kyle Busch reportedly going to RCR. It was like we all heard the rumors, it's all the rumblings everybody's talked about all summer. I was like, when you got it out there, and I was like, well, that's not bullshit.
Yeah,
like it's happening.
That was one on the show when we were like, he actually is going to go to RCR.
Yeah, he's going.
Yeah, and that was one that that it was a story that we had been working on for a long time. Not just the RCR component, which that didn't come together. I didn't finalize until late. But I mean, this story really has been going on since back, in the spring, and through the various journey to that point, there had been different teams that had looked at it, and you're like, oh man, he's going to probably go there. Like if you're asking me today, I'd put money on this team and that, and that this was a story that constantly changed. I mean, there was days where it like changed by the hour. And so you have to be really, really careful about that, because throughout this whole process, you're like, okay, I'm pretty confident that this is where it's going, but you weren't sure. And you had that little bit of sliver of doubt. So you had to wait. And that's what we did. And it wasn't until the very end, obviously, when we put out the story that he was going to RCR, like we had everything buttoned up and we were 100% right and accurate in what we reported. And that was that he's going to RCR, because we knew at that point, pen had met paper and that a deal had been signed.
Are you like, F it, I'm going to post it?
Nah, it ain't like that. I mean, there were times you're just like, I just want this to be over. Can we just all move on? But I will say, because it was one of those things too. Like, I mean, I think all of the parties involved kind of wanted this to be settled. Like Kyle didn't want to keep answering the questions, right?
Right.
Like he wanted to be.
It gets old. They beat it like a dead horse. Sometimes.
I mean, he was making jokes on Twitter about it. It was obvious.
Yeah, and so it happened, and it finally was put to bed, and it would happen much later than everybody wanted, but here we are, and it's just one of those things that it took a while to do, because it was a lot of complicating factors, and it's not as Kyle said, because he owns a Truck Series team, that really added kind of a wrinkle in this that had to be accounted for.
Speaking of big stories and Kyle Busch, for somebody that doesn't like to always be on TV, when Kyle Busch blew up at Bristol, I saw a dude in a fresh ass pink shirt running up behind through the toolboxes and everything with the camera and microphone. I was like, oh, that's Jordan right there. Look, it's like a bum rush, but I saw you like, get out of the way.
I do not like to put myself front and center in the camera. I don't do photos. Like I do not like, I post, like if somebody asks me to take a photo of them, I will, but taking a photo of myself, like, or, on my own is something I will never do. It's just, I'm very self-conscious. But when it comes to like things like that, it's like, don't care. Like I want to be front and center because I want the story. I want to be there in case something happens and I can report on it. And the only way to do that sometimes is you have to get in front of things. And that means you're on camera.
Well, I feel like as a company, like if you worked for me and I saw that, I'd be like, look at my guy right there, getting in there, getting after it. Like he's doing work, boy.
I'm gonna pass along this to my bosses, please.
Hey, look at him.
Let him know.
You're in the trenches.
Let him know. Chairgatin
out there getting it.
So who's driving the 16 next year? What do we? Good question, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a pretty good idea. I honestly don't feel comfortable saying.
Okay, hey, no worries.
I'm speculating.
Not a big deal then. Yep.
I have a pretty good idea. I think it's going to be a familiar face.
Cool.
But don't hold me to that.
Yeah. All right. No biggie. Yeah. That's cool.
Oh, but man, hey, we're jumping all over the board here, but dude, Bristol happened into the playoffs. First round.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, who would have guessed Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, and Tyler Reddick? I mean, I think Austin Dillon kind of was an easy one, but all three heavy hitters out first round, plagued by bad luck, I'd say. I don't think it was a performance issue.
I think past, present, future RCR is out.
Yeah,
craziest storyline, right? That's like,
and the timing is like NASCAR works in mysterious ways sometimes. It's weird how things happen. And I mean, I think Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick being out first round, just like, the 12, 24, 11, and 9, just sort of like Whew. All right. Get them out of here.
Yeah, it was surprising. Like, you could make a case for all three of those guys really making deep playoffs runs. And I really particularly liked Kyle Busch. I really liked Tyler Reddick. I thought he was one of those guys that could really make some noise. And Harvick's Harvick. You never count him out. And they had a lot of speed. And I didn't think he was going to maybe make the championship 4. I mean, I'm not saying he couldn't, but it felt like he was going to be a factor. And all three are gone. And you look at it, you got 4 guys this year who are in their first playoffs ever, and they're now moving on to the second round.
12.
Yeah, it's like
it's crazy seeing some of the names on there.
Yeah, looking at the points here, I'm like Cindric, Suarez,
right?
Briscoe?
Yeah.
Of the guys that were knocked out, what name surprised you the most?
It had to be Kyle Busch, just because I know he only had 1 win this year and it was on the dirt, but he had run really, really well. Like he could easily have had like 5 or 6 wins this year if things had just been a little bit different with his luck. And it's Joe Gibbs Racing. Joe Gibbs Racing has built really, really fast race cars. They've had a really good year. And you just don't – Kyle Busch has never gone out in the first round. You could say the same thing about Harvick, but Stewart-Haas Racing has not really performed to the level that Joe Gibbs Racing has. And
no, not at all.
And Kyle Busch – and he just kind of felt as it is. It would have been appropriate if Kyle Busch would have gone out on his career at Joe Gibbs Racing with a championship and kind of like done the
Mike
okay,
drop.
y'all like didn't want me, I'm out of here and I'm taking the title with me.
That'd been sweet.
For me personally, it was Tyler Reddick.
Sure.
I felt like the dude was on a tear all season. I thought he was going to be a sleeper to go far, maybe not Final 4, but right around there.
I mean, you put Homestead, he makes it the Final 8, and if you put Homestead in there, I think he's got a shot. There's a road there. I mean, I was totally surprised. I was always don't count out the 418 big dogs right there. It's just crazy circumstances. I mean, Kyle Busch blows up 2 of the 3 races. Kevin Harvick blows up, spontaneously combusts. Like, what is going on? I mean, partially next gen car. We saw Bristol. It was almost like the Southern 500 went to Bristol instead, because the cars couldn't keep up. Guys were having tire woes. I mean, it was a whole debacle. Drivers were giving some very spicy interviews. Dude, yeah. I mean, you probably had a field day down there working.
I love Bristol because it's great. I mean, there's always something going on, right?
Yeah.
Like whether people are always upset, whether it's because their car blew up or mechanical failures or someone wrecked them. Like people are always upset at Bristol. You could give me all of the playoff races at Bristol, and I would not object.
Dude, yeah, I can't. It's always a they can't miss race, and then I can't imagine working it. But man, yeah. So now we're re-racking the top 12, going to Texas, Dega, and Roval. Such a weird round. It's like it's chaotic and nuts. It's because Dega, and then I mean, I feel like Roval's kind of sliding into like it's just a road course, sort of. I mean, I'm so I'm so up and down with Roval. Like I get it's like here, but then I'm also like, hey, we could run that over right there.
I love Darlington, Kansas, Bristol personally. Like I love that.
The first round is the funnest. Yeah. But yeah, dude, Texas, I don't even know what to think about this weekend. I think somebody familiar gets into the victory lane, and we kind of just go on and like who didn't have a pit road trouble. Dega's gonna be insane. And Roval's going to be like, who can make up some points? But, I mean, Suarez, Cindric, Bowman, Briscoe, Blaney, Bell are all like 4 points from – or in Hamlin, too, 4 points from each other-ish.
Yeah, and Bell – I feel bad for Bell because he was phenomenal in round 1. I think he had an average finish of 4th in round 1, and that's incredible. And now he goes from like, from really feeling really good about himself to like, oh, I'm only 4 points above the line.
Yeah. I think he's a super sleeper Final 4 pick. 100%. I think he's making huge moves. There's a lot of guys, and that's the one I love the playoffs. We're old school NASCAR fans, but I think with playoffs is one of the best things that happened to the sport. I like you said,
Dakota's hot take. A lot of old school fans don't agree with him.
The monotony of Jeff Gordon's got to finish 31st or better. Jimmy Johnson's just got to start. He won the championship 3 races early. Why are we still racing? Stuff like that. It was so old. Playoffs, and I know we kind of had to shake it up. Jimmy was destroying the field, but it was like I think it can still be tweaked some. Sure. I don't like that every round the points reset back to the starting, or like it resets to your points. I would like if each round you just start the second round based on your first round's points. or then like start the third round based off of your first and second round points. I don't know. I don't work for NASCAR, but
no, I will say I'm a traditionalist by that sense. Like Southern 500, like that race needs to be on Labor Day weekend, and there are just some things you don't mess with. And I love short tracks. I want more short tracks.
Yeah.
I don't care about how the next gen car races on short tracks. We'll figure that out. But like you though, I look at the old point system of like 1 through 36, and it's like, really, like, I'm sorry, that just does nothing for me. And I don't think in this day and age you can do it. And I think the format that NASCAR has devised rewards consistency, high-end consistency during the regular season, and also like winning matters. And also come the playoffs, it's crazy. It's every year, it's unpredictable. And I think you want that. And you can debate whether winning a championship in this format is the same value of a championship of old, and whether it's how you gauge winning championships now, and whether it means anything. That's fine. But at the end of the day, this is also about entertainment, and having this crazy ass format is pretty entertaining.
Yeah, and it doesn't take away their championships, in my opinion. Regardless of how you feel about the format, they won the championship. They're the champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that if you're in the Final Four and you've beat the other three guys, you're the champion.
And Dakota's a Harvick fan, and he still calls Chase Elliott a champion. So that's that says something.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the problem I have is like the fan base on Twitter is everybody loves a bitch.
Yeah,
like when Matt Crafton won the truck championship without a win, and people were complaining. It was like, was he in the Final Four? Did he beat the other guys? Yeah, then he won the championship. That's how this works. Like, you go to the Super Bowl and you beat the other team, you win the Super Bowl. Like, that's how this is. And I love that. I love how it's like a Game 7 moment, Final Four, sudden death. I love that kind of like.
But what's the storyline going to be like when Ryan Blaney wins the championship with winning only that single race?
Or doesn't win the race at all, finishes second ahead of the other guys. You know what? And people are going to lose their minds if Chase Briscoe slips in here and wins a championship with one win at Phoenix or something.
Jordan, as a journalist, does that excite you?
I mean, Blaney winning a championship is a big deal because he's one of NASCAR's young stars, and he is a very popular driver. So there's the caveat of like that you can't ignore that. I mean, it would be talked about if he finishes second and never wins a race this year. There's probably going to be people like, hey, wait a second, I thought this was about winning. But again, performance matters. You just keep focusing on winning. Like, him having to get there means he performed at an exceptionally high level.
Exactly.
Three different rounds. That needs to be rewarded. I always afraid to throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, oh, this format sucks, because you maybe have a year where you have a champion that maybe doesn't quote unquote feel deserving. I'm sorry, but I look at the way this format is, and even really since you've gone to the knockout format in 2014, I can't point to one champion that wasn't deserving in some facet that I could make a case for. And I know Joey Logano, in 2018, everybody's going to point to that and like, oh, well, he didn't win that many races. I think it was 3 that year, maybe 4. But at the end of the day, he still had a really good year. And by the way, he went to Homestead in the championship race, and he beat the 3 winningest drivers in the year. He beat Truex, Harvick, and Kyle Busch. He beat them straight up. That says something.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I went in there, just get to the final round, knocked them all out, dude.
I think I love that. I think the funniest thing about Blaney, if he doesn't get a win and wins the championship, which I know is such a stretch, but the funniest thing about it, in my opinion, the story-wise, would be when Blaney was getting in. If you remember Daytona and Austin Dillon won,
barely.
Everybody was bitching, saying, "Oh, Austin got in, bullshit! Like, it shouldn't be just based on wins; it should be points." And watch Ryan Blaney win without getting a win, and the argument completely will flip.
Well, him at Bristol, him putting around Bristol, it was the points were just dropping. It was like, and then he skits by a hair going in this round. Is like, dude, if he skims his way to the Final Four and wins it, it'll be huge.
Those playoff points changing on the Jumbotron in Bristol, I was like, oh my god.
But the thing with Blaney, though, is like, I don't have the stat in front of me, but there was going into the playoffs, he had led more races this year total than any other driver. And he had finished the regular season, second or third in the point standings. Like, that has to be admired. And if you're an old school NASCAR fan, you can't look at that and not be impressed and say, well, that guy did what he needed to do. Should he have won a race? Yeah, but he didn't. But his high level week to week consistency got him to that point, and that's something that we shouldn't diminish.
They're all playing the same game with the same rules.
100%.
Yeah,
that's how it works. But dude, we'll just jump in through some of our segments.
All right.
we're going to do our good and bad of Bristol. Good is going to be, for me, the crowd. The freaking stackedest crowd I've seen in ages there. Reminded me of the good old days. My first Bristol race was in 03. I was at Dale Jr.'s Bristol win. The place was nuts. In 04, it gave me those feelings back. Like, Bristol's back, baby. I loved it. That was my good of Bristol.
I mean, personally, as a fan, that is my first time ever at Bristol. Seeing that crowd, I'm like, did I just get a little spoiled? Because that was a great looking crowd. I'm hoping it just continues to look like that, so I don't have to go back next year and be like disappointed with the crowd, because that crowd was awesome. I mean, granted, we kind of expected it to be just because of the season and how the tracks have been. You know, we were just at Darlington just before that. That was nuts. So for me, the good is obviously just my first Bristol race in person. Like, that was spectacular. Probably going to be on my annual rotation now.
Nice.
My wife will, I'm sure, be super happy to hear there's another track that's on that list.
This is where I give mine.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
to me, I know some people say this because it felt frustrating because of the car, but to me, the unpredictability and the fact that so many playoff drivers had issues and you didn't know what was going on, and how many different leaders do we have had problems? Keselowski, Bell, Hamlin, Blaney, goes on and on. Like, to me, that unpredictability, I love it. I like it when things, you don't know what's going to happen and there's something unforeseen. It just adds an element to it that you don't always get.
Hell yeah. You know what's funny? We talked about, we've been on here this whole time and never even brought up Chris Buescher. The non-playoff driver, 3 non-playoff drivers in the first round. Freaking unheard of. I thought that was the craziest storyline of the playoffs so far.
I would agree, 100%.
You get one, you get one here and there, or, a guy gets knocked out and still wins, whatever. But 3 like scrub-a-dubs in the back just stole the wins. And it's kind of crazy because usually you see a guy, Denny wins the first race, he's already in the next round. He's a contender. Right. But it's like, no, what the hell? But, dude, I'm going to take my bad of Bristol, and I don't know if there's anything bad to say about it. But what's going to be bad is that the next time we come here, this place is going to be covered in dirt. That is going to be my bad of Bristol. And unfortunately, however, the only thing I think, too, is like, well, at this point, it's either the dirt race or we don't get 2 Bristols. So I'm like, I guess I'll just take Bristol dirt.
I already said my bad, having to convince my wife that this is another
annual. Good luck with that.
Another annual race. It's like Darlington, Daytona, Talladega, and now Bristol. Okay.
Yeah. Mine is, I mean, it was a very compelling race, I think, for a lot of different reasons, because you didn't know what was going to happen. But the new car did struggle to race, side by side. Yeah. Guys did struggle to make paths. It wasn't to the level of excitement, if you will, on track excitement that you'd normally associate with Bristol. It's just kind of a problem with this car. I think you can't ignore it. That would be my quibble.
Yeah, I agree. The car, like, of course, it's fun being there. There was some compelling racing, but it wasn't that, like, guys falling off, guys coming from the back to the front to the back. It was almost like you watch guys battle to pass each other for 50 laps.
Yeah, I mean, once Chris Buescher took off on that restart, it was pretty much over.
2 tires pulled away, and I think that's something that they will continue to fight against. But that'll take us right in our race rating. I hate to give Bristol an average score because this place is so awesome.
And it's tough that we went to the race,
Yeah, well, here's the thing too, Jordan, is when we go to races, they get ranked a lot higher. Because
something seems for being there in person.
Completely different experience. But yeah, I'm gonna give, on the Richter scale, I think I'm gonna give Bristol 8-1.
An 8-1. See, how do you rate Bristol after seeing it live? I'm not sure where
I'm being modest, to be honest.
Yeah.
Being there, I'm like, I want to give this bitch a 9, but like, I bet on TV, it was so. That's another thing. That's a problem with going to races and watching, especially with some of the broadcasts, is like, well, NBC knocks it out of the park, but it's like, night and day from being there.
Jordan, what would you give this? I want to copy whatever you're about to say, because I can't.
Let's see. I would say 7, 6.9, 7, somewhere in there. I mean, it was good. I thought it was compelling. It was exciting. You had a lot of drama, but the lack of – I didn't feel like you had that one Bristol moment like we had Harvick Elliott a year ago, right? Of like, oh, man, that's Bristol. That's what Bristol's all about. It felt like it was just missing that one big juicy thing where you're like, that's why I love Bristol so much, because so-and-so shoved that guy out of the way, and then they got pissed at each other on pit road.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take yours, and I'm gonna go with a 7-8. I'm gonna bump it up. I'm gonna bump it up a little bit.
Okay.
But I liked where you were going.
Well, that's the
with
thing
that,
too.
so.
Is like you said, the Kevin Chase thing is like I think for a lot of races, the new cars put on a better show, but like I think the 2021 Bristol race was probably better than this race.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Oh man, so we'll switch gears real quick. We don't even like to talk about Texas, really. Sorry, Rattlesnake, it's his home track, but
Man,
we're going
know,
to
it's
Texas.
tough,
There's not
it's
much to
tough.
talk about.
Yeah.
I imagine a playoff driver wins. I don't think the streak goes on. I'm honestly, I mean, I don't know who I'm leaning, but as an underdog, hell, can we count any of these new winners as an underdog still?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Usually, this segment works really well because it's like the guys not in the playoffs rarely win. So this is like the underdog pick. But now, I mean, playoff guys can't win. So it's almost flipped. I don't understand.
All right.
I don't know what to think anymore.
We'll still just do outside of playoffs. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
with I'm gonna go with Eric Jones. I'm not sleeping on him.
Dude,
He's
I
still
was
fast.
actually thinking of Eric Jones as well. But you
boy's
know
hot.
what? You know what? 2311's been killing it. I'm gonna go Bubba.
That's my pick right there. That would be
Oh,
my
wow.
pick too. Intermediate tracks this year, they've had a lot of speed.
Yeah, Toyota's been killing it.
I wouldn't be shocked to see Bubba get another win. He should
I mean,
have.
he's been up
honestly, he
there.
should have probably 2 or 3, maybe, depending on how you look at it. He should have a couple. He
Yes.
should have more wins than he has.
It kind of
100%
reminds me
agree.
of Reddick. Like, the last couple
yeah.
years, Reddick's so hot. He's so fast. But then, like, couldn't ever really close. Couldn't get it done. But now he's consistently more up there. He's already got that dub now.
He's got the win. No
if
rain.
he keeps
nothing
doing
to
this,
do with
like,
it.
I'm kind of next year, Bubba might be a force.
His average finish, if you go back, I don't have the number in front of me, but it's pretty much after Nashville. I think it starts at New Hampshire. He had the best or second best average finish out of anybody. Like, he is really coming into his own, and people,
and like the second half. Yeah,
exactly. And he's really good at everywhere, and not just about everywhere. Like, even road courses now, he's finishing well, which was always a track that he kind of struggled on.
Right. I just always would give him super speedways, but now after this season, it's like, oh, okay, he can probably get it done.
Yeah, there's really not many tracks now I don't feel confident in him in, and I think it feels like next year really could be something special.
I was going to say the problem is he doesn't get it done though. So I need him to start getting it done if I'm making these picks.
I was like, he's learned, like, he is really coming to his own in terms of the mental preparation and how to handle things when things go wrong. If you listen to his radio, and I tend to listen to it a lot, in Nashville this year, it was ugly. Like, he was pissed at his pit crew, understandably, like 100% get it. Like, I would have been mad too. And his pit crew let him down again. And he was ranting and raving, but even when things go wrong since then, you don't hear that on the radio. Like, he's able to kind of compartmentalize a little bit and keep forward thinking. And that has really changed his outlook. And I think that has really impacted on how he's raced. And it sounds silly to think that, like, how you mentally handle things can make you faster. But in his case, I think it's true.
Well, I think the opposite kind of is happening to Ross right now. I think Ross has some mental things going on right now, because if you look at his average finishes from when he started the problems with Denny, it has gone down drastically. So
he's just kind of been off the radar. He was blowing up this like spring.
Oh, once
all the Denny stuff happened, it's like he's just been there.
We were calling him Kyle Larson at the beginning of the season. We were like, this is the next Kyle Larson right here. The guy can't lose. So
yeah, they couldn't finish races, and that was the thing. Like, they had a lot of speed, but they weren't finishing races, and that was worrisome because you need to have that consistency. Speed's great, but finishes is one thing. He's another guy though too. You throw Reddick in that category, you throw Walt. There's a lot of guys you could add on this list this year who should have more wins than they do. Chastain certainly is one of them.
Yeah,
Truex.
Truex is on that list.
Poor guy.
Speaking of which, I think Truex could be a force weekend, but that's gonna take my regular pick. And I'm just with Toyota. I think they're gonna be heaters. And I'm gonna pick Denny Hamlin. I think Denny Hamlin's just gonna go ahead and get himself right to the third round. Skip Dagan, Roval.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's my pick.
Yep.
I'm gonna go Blaney.
Ooh,
I think he's finally gonna get a win, which, by the way, would add another new winner to the season.
What the hell is going on?
Just wild.
Oh, man.
It would be the first playoff winner to win in the playoffs and a new winner. So that would just extend the storyline.
He's really, really good at Texas, and that's a place he should have won a few races now and hasn't. It wouldn't shock me to see him win. The only concern I have there is Penske's intermediate track program isn't quite to the level that Toyota. You could really honestly pick any Toyota driver, and I could see them winning this weekend. Penske struggle a little bit on the mile-and-a-half racetrack. That's concerning.
Yeah.
All I can say is on the money spot, just stay out. Old tires. So it's not going to matter. I'll be a crew chief. Oh, man. All right. While we still got you on, Jordan, where's Reddit? Where's Reddit going?
For next year?
Yeah. What do you believe the bullshit? I don't believe it. I don't believe
this.
I have my opinion.
And you don't have to tell us. You don't have to tell
No,
us.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, honestly,
okay.
I mean, we don't right now. It is what the situation is. Like
Yeah.
right now, it is 2311 is content with figuring out other options. And RCR is moving forward with having 3 cars next year, 3 chartered cars, which I think is an important distinction.
Mm-hmm.
That is as the plan as of now. I think ultimately, and this is just my opinion, this is not any reporting, this is just my opinion. I think ultimately cooler heads prevail, and it makes too much sense for Tyler Reddick not to go to 2311.
Yeah.
We don't know Kurt's status, and that's the big question here, right? So let me just add this on there before I say anything else. Presuming Kurt isn't cleared to race next year, they're going to need a driver for the 45 car, at least at the beginning of the year before he. So knowing that and knowing the fact that what it all costs to start a third team and to get the lease a charter, all of that stuff, it doesn't make sense of why these two teams can't get into a room and figure out some kind of deal where 2311 gets the driver that they want a year early and RCR is compensated that fairly, but not overly so. I just think that at the end of the day, a Reddick to 2311 makes too much sense.
Yeah. Let bygones be bygones. I think we're playing a game of Monopoly here. Dollar bills talk.
It does make too much sense. Do you think that it's more RCR wanting to hold on to one of the best young drivers right now to start their third charter, or option 2, Richard Childress is really still butthurt with how Tyler Reddick is handling?
I think there's a lot of hard feelings.
Okay, well, the third option was they don't want to pay.
Clearly some hard feelings, and the fact that maybe it's a coincidence, and maybe I'm reading too much in the room maybe about this, but Tyler Reddick, when he informed RCR that he was leaving, told the team 1 hour before the announcement.
Oh, yeah.
Richard Childress told Tyler Reddick that he was being shifted out of his team 1 hour before the announcement.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a coincidence. Yeah.
Personally, I think that's fair. I love Tyler Reddick, and that's the thing. I love Tyler Reddick. He's a great dude. He's been on the show. Super nice guy. But I'm kind of like, I think
Richard's like, I own you. Okay, you're not going.
There's some hard feelings. Like, we're not even speculating. We know for a fact. Like that statement that Richard Childress Racing released an hour or whatever it was after Reddick made his announcement said it all. Like in that closing part of that statement, it was like he was very obvious. He was upset. And I talked to Richard the next day, and Richard was very adamant. Like he was not happy. He was frustrated with how that played out. How you feel about all of this depends on your perspective. But I get it. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand his perspective. But at the end of the day, like, are you going to spend all of this money and because you're upset and hurt about what a business decision that someone else made? It just in the big picture doesn't seem to make sense.
Like my thought on the whole situation is like, do you think your boss at the Atlantic would be upset if an hour before work you told him, "Hey, I just got hired at ESPN and I'm going there now"?
Well, I don't have a contract, so I'm free to, that would,
like I know my employer would not be happy.
Yeah, would my company be sad to lose me? I would hope so. I don't know. Depends on the day, I suppose. Yeah. They'd probably be upset to lose. I would hope they'd be upset to lose me.
I think they would be. I can tell you from no insider. I think they would be upset to lose you.
I was just gonna say, like, the thing with Reddick though, like he was very adamant, like, I'm going to race my butt off for the next year and a half.
Right.
And a couple weeks later, he went and raced his butt off at Indy and won that race. And he has done nothing not to live up to his end of the bargain. And I think that's very admirable. So.
But because of that, don't you think that Richard Childress is like, well, why don't we just keep him for another season? Because he is racing his butt off.
Liz, if you can keep Tyler Reddick and you have the ability, he's a hell of a driver, right? His talent's crazy.
You have a team with Kyle Busch and Tyler Reddick.
But the question is like, is he going to be in a race car next year though? Like that's going to be capable of winning? We don't know. Is he going to be in this? Is not far fetched to think like he could be given like an R&D type level equipment. Like
he might blow motors 2 out of 3 races.
You might. It's not inconceivable. Like he's losing his crew chief. We don't know who's going to be his crew chief next year. And there's all of these unknowns. And, for talent standpoint, yeah, you want to keep Reddick, and he's going to make your
Yeah.
organization better. But you have to make sure you put him in a situation
sounds
where he can
awkward.
help your organization.
So do you think Richard Childress is putting that exit fee up really high, and that's why Denny isn't willing to pay that
Yes,
bill?
that is
Okay.
what is happening.
Because
the
I thought it was
buyout
surprising
number,
they weren't willing to pay it. But
the number is too high for what
Okay.
2311 wants to pay, and that's on them.
and they
If-
know
And that's
it's
not on them, but that they have to. It's up to them then to find what that number is, and
Right.
I'm not sure what that number is, and maybe they don't want to pay it at all. They just like, you know what, we're going to get by for a year, and we'll figure it out. But when I've been told the number that RCR has is more than it makes sense.
If Reddick never announces he's leaving in the middle of the year, RCR never gets Kyle Busch.
You're probably right. Yeah,
That's
I
an
mean,
interesting
you're
point.
right. You're 100% right, and you're 100% right, and that's a really good point. And I would say that's actually something I never really thought of before you mentioned it. Like, you're right though, because I wrote a story today. Been writing a story that'll be out tomorrow. I finished it today about Austin Dillon, and Austin Dillon said, like, when Reddick announced he was leaving, he was like, we need to figure out what we're going to do to replace Reddick. And he was like, why do we not go get Kyle Busch? He's sitting out there. So to your point, if
Thank
Reddick
God,
waits
Austin.
until the offseason or later to announce that he's leaving, RCR is not getting Kyle Busch. They're settling for somebody far less. And
Yeah.
so you're right. I mean, it did open the door. I hadn't
probably
even thought
calling up
about that.
Austin Hill. I mean, I will say, look, Austin, Austin can race as long as he wants to race. He definitely has that option. But him kind of brokering this deal with Kyle Busch, I think, shows a clear future of team management with RCR.
You're going to want to read my story tomorrow on the
Hell yeah.
Athletic.
All
Where
right.
and Jordan, so why everybody's here? Where can we check you out? Where can we
Sure.
check out that article?
No
Plug
problem.
your stuff. Where can we see you?
Athletic.com, the motorsports page. That's where you can see everything there. We are a subscription-based website, but we always have deals available. I think we even have a deal right now for $1 for a month for like 6 months or something. So there's always great deals out there. And I promise you, if you're a fan of sports, you guys said college football. Like, I signed up for the Athletic years ago before I was even a working there, because I am obsessed with college football. It is my absolute favorite sport in the world. And college football coverage is top notch. And if you love sports, you're going to love our coverage. It's in-depth, behind-the-scenes look at everything. So that's where you can find it, theathletic.com.
Definitely
Hell
best
yeah.
sports journalism.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
great stuff, and it's all facts. Drop nothing but bombs. Jordan, we appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on here,
We
man. It was
do.
an honor. Stick around for the outro, and we'll say bye properly. But hey, everybody, Jordan Bianchi on Chairgatin. We'll holler at y'all next week.
Thanks, man. Later.